This is Off Planet Radio.
And we welcome you back once again to Off Planet Radio. I'm Randy Moggins. And for this program, we're going to do a follow-up. It's those of you who have been with me now for the period of time that we've been doing the new version of Off Planet Radio may remember back in July of last year, we did a show called Bloodlines of the Deep State and Other Tales, which featured a newfound friend of mine, Ayin Thropos, and he is back with us tonight. This is going to be kind of mega bloodlines of the deep state, or maybe just mega bloodlines, because what Ayin, who is also Durward King Mahon, his proper name, has discovered is absolutely mind-blowing. And what do you do when you find out that not only are you related to over 40 US presidents, but rock stars, movie stars, bloodlines of Europeans, conquerors, kings, monarchs? Well, I guess we find out because he's got the proof, he's been doing the research, and he's ready here to bring it. And so we will welcome back to Off Planet Radio, Ayin Thropos, AKA Durward King Mahon. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
And I'm not a sir, by the way. I haven't been able to prove I have bloodline royalty yet, but damn it, I'm working on it.
Okay, Lord Earl.
Earl.
Duke, yeah.
Duke of Earl. Is an Earl a Duke? Then is the Duke of Earl is here the Earl of Duke?
Well, no, those are two. Yeah.
Duke.
Yeah. Or
Duke
Baron.
Duke. You got it. I don't sing often, but
I like
I'm
that.
feeling kind of light. So you began sending me information over the last couple months, and really kind of flabbergasting when I looked at it. And I know you've researched this. I know the people that you used to research it, because I used to do business with them, that being the people who are the genealogy researchers for the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, aka the Mormons, who are probably the best genealogical researchers in the world. And when you began to send me the actual printouts, I was like, okay, this is for real. So just to get started here, because there's so much information, there's so many turns and twists in this whole thing, I'm going to let you unpack the narrative, and I'm just going to kind of be the guy that asks questions and tosses off the occasional comment. But this is your story. And I know you've got some things you want to show us and tell us. How did you get started going down the rabbit hole of rabbit holes, or this one goes to center earth?
It really does. And there's many aspects I am, still trying to come to grips with, trying to learn what is the meaning. Also, just on a personal note, as far as petty ego stuff, thinking, I don't want to be the genealogy guy, and everything because some of your listeners aren't familiar, may not know that I've been working now for 3 or 4 years in this truther community, and I have worked hard to get relations and stuff with some of the top people, including yourself, and it's just this stuff is very far out. I haven't posted anything about it on Facebook or anything like that, because it's got what I call the wow, we look at me, factor. We know that back in the 1800s or whatever, there was the joke, if you paid enough money, they could prove that you're related to the Queen of Sheba, or you're Marie Antoinette's, daughter or whatever. But even though it was a science back then, the internet has done wonders for the science of genealogy.
Right. The other side of this is what your story really tells, because in that first show, we sort of uncorked the whole story about you and your uncle, who was Congressman George H. Mahon. He served in Congress for over 40 years and pretty much ran what you would call the deep state, dark state national security network system that we have today. So you come at this with a bit of credential because we know who you are. And as I was going through your material, what struck me was that this thing is old. This is an old story. This is the story of people who have contained power structures through bloodlines, which is actually material I'm breaking out on my own podcast these days. So it's not inconsiderable when we start to look at the structure of this world, who runs it, how it's run, that we consider that there's a considerable amount of, shall we say, cross-pollination in the hierarchy of the structure and the downline and the genealogy. So you're sort of living proof of that. I know there's no pride involved in it with you. And I know that this isn't a look at me. This is kind of a look at us.
Absolutely, meaning the human race.
Exactly.
You know, and the way we've been organized without our knowledge.
Yeah.
And what exactly is this realm that we're living in?
Oh, there you go. That is the biggie. So break it out for us.
Well, you know, when I'd been on your show before and stuff like this, part of my narrative or whatever is I was claiming that I was on the bloodlines of the pharaonic dominators, which is absolutely true. But I was, you know, just hornswoggled or whatever the word may be a couple of months ago when I started to learn some facts, and I was like, I did not know. I had no idea the scope of it and that it was like this. And even genealogy experts in Salt Lake City and stuff like that are actually baffled about, you know, checking and rechecking because it's weird. Well, I have, for whatever reason, I've always been wanting to study mind. Could I be under some type of mind control? And I'm in these Facebook like little chats that can go on for years, and some of your high level people in the community get on these, have these little secret chats, and that's where a lot of the information in the community gets passed around.
Yes,
when it's not on, you know, these videos and stuff. And so you meet some very interesting people there. And I'm in one group, and most of these people are survivors, and I'm like the only one. There's like 21 of us, and I'm like the only one that did not know Max Spears personally or James Casbolt or something like that. And these people are all legitimate survivors. And when I say survivor in this context, I'm meaning usually the people that have survived the programs, the kids in cages and stuff like this, and also programs similar to the ones that you were put through.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, oh my gosh, you know, could I have been somehow gone through this and it's been repressed in my memory? Well, I don't know, but I can tell you that the three more or less psychics I had back then a couple of years ago were all in consensus in that no, I have not been subjected to this trauma-based mind control. But in their opinion, they all said the same thing, that I was under some type of mind control, but it seemed to be more hypnotic based. So, and now the trauma came later when the powers that be, or my own actions, whatever it was, that ended up putting me in the penitentiary 2 different times. And I fought for my life, fought for my pride every motherfucking day. And, you know, that's some serious shit. And I became, you know, the man that you see now. I'm as hard as they come, you know. And so, and that's cool. I'm cool with that now. I respect everyone. I'm not a tough guy or anything like this. But it just gave me a type of confidence that I needed, and I can kind of see what I may have needed it for. But the thing is, these idea of these monarch assets, and you know, the male or female, they can all do similar functions. They can be assassins, they can be drug couriers, they can carry information, secret information or encrypted information. They can be sex slaves.
Exactly.
They can be setting people up to get, what's it called when you hold something against them, you have them on tape or whatever, blackmail. Yeah. Okay. So, but there is a kind of a sexism deal involved with it. In other words, the women are almost always, especially if they're good looking, used for this sex slave type stuff. But the guys are too.
Guys are too. Yes.
Yeah, for the gay stuff,
Yeah.
right?
So it goes a lot deeper and darker than that. But almost anybody that's been through mind control projects has been sexually altered and used in that way. That's part of the training.
Absolutely, because I've been told, that's kind of one of the things that layers it in or imprints the things on you is this
exactly.
being raped and stuff. I come to realize is right before I got really serious YouTube stuff that I had literally an Illuminati handler, and it was a young lady, her my age, she was from the town that I'm from, and I'd known her for 35 years. A 26-year veteran of the Hollywood motion picture industry. Mm-hmm. So that is, of course, a red flag right there. And she's a costume designer and has been movies that you've seen for sure, a lot of them. And I'm not going to reveal her identity. So anyway, but she does not think that she is this, she's in denial about it, but she is also very exceedingly cruel person a lot of time, only to me. Everybody else thinks she's the sweetest thing in the world. Well, one of my psychics there in the UK told me that that's her way of dealing with the despair. The despair is what she called it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I could go on and on trying to give evidence on that, but I'm not going to. But there's other people that I've met, usually women, and just only a few that had some really weird things about their case or their story that automatically made me think, okay, wait, there's something going on here. Okay, well, I met this one lady named Lori, and I have not met her face to face yet, but she lives in Austin, and we met in one of these type O negative blood groups, right. And we started talking, and we kind of became friends, and she's really pretty and everything. And so I was, we were talking and everything, and come to find out she has 3 kids, and one of them is 8 years old and has been taken away from her by the kid's grandmother. Mm-hmm. And so I was asking about the facts of this, and she had gone to court and all this stuff. It's just the most bizarre story. And there were falsified court documents involved and all kinds of crazy stuff that just didn't add up. And we know who controls the court systems. Yeah. And so I started to realize, oh my goodness, there's probably this child that has some type of special ability and they want him. And you see, one time when she really retaliated and was going to get him back or something, they took her other 2 kids away, and that just broke her down. And she said, okay, in other words, you can have that one and just let me keep these 2, I'm just kind of imagining that's how it was. Yeah. So she's, not to be crass or anything, but she's a type of breeder, I think, for the Mariah conquering wind. And, we know that's one of the, there's many different organizations, but one of the organizations that's what they call themselves. And anyway, so I was thinking, well, this lady is a monarch asset somehow. Well, my psychic in UK, I was telling her about it, and she was a little bit distressed because there was kids involved, and she has a big heart. She doesn't like to get involved with people. Well, she went, this is a very powerful person. She went and looked through Lori's eyes with her abilities. And we did not know, neither me or the psychic, whether that was in real time or whether it was a memory, but we soon found out that it was a memory. But the psychic lady, let's just call her Norda or something like that. She told me, she said, I'm drunk. I'm really, really drunk, or I'm been drugged up. And then she was describing it to me, and she was being physically carried. And then she saw the boots, and the boots were Timberland brand of boots. Mm-hmm. Well, this lady Lori does not drink or use drugs. She's very straight. So that, she knew that that wasn't her. And then I told her that deal about the Timberland boots, and she's like, her jaw just hit the ground. She's like, my husband wears Timberland boots. You see. So she had been most likely drugged and maybe taken to be inspected, who knows, or indoctrinated, who knows what the deal was. And this guy is somehow involved, and I don't even necessarily think that he was even consciously involved. I have come to learn that many of these handlers are not aware of what they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, okay, well, and I tried to explain to her what a monarch was, and she says, oh, no, I'm not that and everything. But she wanted to tell me about all of these royalty that she was related to. And I said, oh, that's interesting, and that kind of interesting. And I said, maybe that kind of ties in, or obviously does tie in. And but she just kept going on and on about it. And it turns out she spends a lot of her time going over these genealogical websites and stuff. And she was urging me to become involved and to become interested in genealogy. I was like, oh, I just don't have the time. It sounds real interesting and everything. But I just don't have the time. And I just kind of kept saying no. And she just kind of kept insisting. And finally, I relented and allowed her to open up an account with this one site called FamilySearch.org, which is a free genealogical site, and they are run by the Mormons, and they are also one of the most respected ones in the world. And in fact, where many of the other ones get their information from their databases. That's
absolutely true.
Church of Latter-day Saints. Well, so I relented, and so she started looking some stuff up, and she started just coming back to me with these wild reports. It's like, this is just wild. Like that I related to Jim Morrison of the Doors. Buddy Holly, Janice Joplin, and everything. And so I was thinking, and then some politicians and even some royalty. And so I was like, oh, I get it. Everyone is related to these stars and celebrities and politicians and stuff. And she's like, no, that's what it's not. I was like, what? Like, yeah, no. She's done plenty of genealogies for people, and they go nowhere or whatever. And so we just found this to be very bizarre, and we just kind of kept digging, and it's just like, I don't know, maybe clawing a little deal. It just washed over all the information, even to where making even the most radical discoveries within the last week. And let
me read a little partial list here from what you sent me. Related to Abraham Lincoln, 22 ways. Gerald Ford, 64 ways. Mark Twain, Lyndon Johnson, Mary Stuart, Margaret Tudor, George Washington, Oliver Cromwell, William Bradford, Mayflower fame, Johnny Cash, Gus Grissom, the astronaut, Harry Truman, Bonnie Parker, Janice Joplin, and William Brewster, to just name a couple, another of the Mayflower people. So not only that, but you list, and I'll let you explain this more exactly, how many different ways you can be related to a person. Because this is a part that I had not thought of before.
I hadn't either.
The other side I will add to this is you got a lot of credibility by using the Mormon researchers. Back in the 90s, some of my listeners now have talked about this. I sold information storage and retrieval systems, everything from very large systems that store X-ray films to industrial storage systems to micrographic systems, microfilm. I sold microfilm machines by the dozens to the Mormon Church because those were how records were archived. Microfilm is archival material. It's long-term storage. And, I sold these people machines all the time. I did business with them. I saw how serious they were. By the way, the last project I worked on in 1998 was selling digital scanners that high-speed scanned microfilm into data. So effectively, in 1998, under a mandate under the Clinton administration, all information was being scanned, machine readable, and uploaded to the internet. So there's a little background on the veracity of the information I can verify in terms of what you're presenting.
Yes, and thank you for that. And I have learned a couple of little things about the Mormons myself, even just recently, and this is just on hearsay or second or third hand knowledge. But there's maybe people have had some jokes about Mitt Romney and his special underwear or something like that. Well, they have entire sets of garments that apparently do protect them from some things. Not only that, they have people in their organization that can do hands-on curing of cancer. They can cure diseases and stuff. And they have people in their organization who have discernment. They can tell if somebody walks in the room and they're possessed by a spirit or something like that. So there's a very real aspect to this Mormon religion.
See, the other aspect to this is that people have to understand there's a reason why they're genealogy experts. The Mormons believe and actively practice in what's called vicarious salvation, praying for the dead, ancestral bloodlines going back, where you basically vicariously substitute yourself in place in intercession for the sins of people who passed long ago. So they're serious about this. I mean, you could laugh at that. You could do whatever you want with that information, but I can tell you they're as serious as a heart attack about genealogy.
They really are. And now I've heard that they baptize dead people sometimes.
Yeah.
So does that go along with what you're saying?
That goes along with it. That's part of the process. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting that you would say that, because I have learned just through reading some arcane Rudolf Steiner works that really the whole game with these Western secret societies, and I will, tell y'all right now that I am a member of the OTO, the Ordo Templi Orientis, but I have not been to the lodge in 4 years, and I'm not what they call a member in good standing, because a member in good standing is someone who is dues current. So although I would be a member of that organization for my life, I'm not really active in that right now. But I have not learned this from them, but through the writings of Rudolf Steiner. If anything I've learned from them, I can't repeat it, because like the Masons, you take all these oaths that if you reveal these secrets, they can, cut your tongue out and do all kinds of terrible things to you. Yeah. I don't know, if they still do that, or if that's been done. Certainly it's been done at some point, these secrets, but you're not promising to keep a secret anything that you figure out on your own. They know what you know by where you are in your grades, what grade of initiation you are and everything. But the interplay with the dead, with ghosts, is huge with Western Hermetic fraternal orders. And they have a technology that is different from the people in India who have their cults as well, that's also dealing with the dead, but it's a totally different nature. And the way they get down over here in Western society, Germanic, English speaking, this side of the world and everything, this is what the game is. They created this idea of scientific materialism. In other words, that God is dead, or that we are just meat puppets. Also, of course, the greatest thing that supports that is the theory of evolution.
Right.
That you and I actually descended from something, that a sludge that crawled out of the sea, some just yucky thing, and then eventually turned into an animal, and then eventually turned into a monkey, and then, got smart or something like that. And that's not true. I can tell you, or at least the teachings of Rudolf Steiner, it's just evolution is real, but it's just the opposite. All of these things actually evolved from us. They're all cast off elements of the human being, so that we can see them outside of ourselves. That's what he says. But what they do is they create this idea of scientific materialism. God is dead. There is no God, and everything like this. And the effect this has is when the person dies, their ghost has no point of reference except for the earth. And so right there, they're chained to the earth. They cannot progress or go to wherever they go, heaven or wherever. And so they're going around aimlessly lost and scared and everything. And then they go around and they send out teams and collect these ghosts and sell them on the ghost slave market. Wrap your head around that. Think about that for a second. We know that the slave markets are real. We know that, that was even still going on to this day. But it had never occurred to me that there would be a slave market for ghosts. So what would you
use? In fact, probably be what we would call the reincarnational looping of souls, where souls are basically stranded and then re-looped?
I don't know, but that's definitely, that's all part of it, because they're dealing with Elohimic forces. And this is a term that Tim Repat uses. And he claims to know quite a bit about these Elohim, which he says are these gray looking little, the little ET looking aliens is the Elohim, is what he says. And they're, whether, you're for, they seem to be like the police of life and death somehow. They're there at that.
Well, these are the gods that are referenced in the Old Testament Bible. As in the councils of the Old Testament, where Satan goes up and they sit and they have a council. The Elohim were the pluralistic gods that are even referenced in Genesis as "Let us create man in our image." They are multiple identities. They are the El gods. Anytime you see an El, that's an Elohim. And that's actually true even today.
Michael.
Exactly. Any of that. The same is true with the Anunnaki as well. They leave their signature as well, which is the AN, the NA. You can invert the letters, but those are markers. Humanity's been marked by these various, what I guess we would call off-world entities.
Absolutely. And these ghosts and the ghost slave market, apparently some of the customers for this are ET, whether they are aliens or whatever, are some of the ones actively buying this. And so what are they using these ghosts for? And the answer that Rudolf Steiner gives us is these ghosts are used as batteries. They're used as power sources for nefarious rituals.
Mm-hmm. There's more to it than that, but that's a whole other conversation. Sure. So let's continue with the narrative here of what you found out and how it has impacted you. Do you have some of those screenshots? Can you throw some of those up with the printouts just so the
Absolutely. I do. And I can also, let me just show you this. They spontaneously made this one report for me, and it was a report of notable people that I'm related to. And the report had 740 people on it. And I recognize maybe about half the names, but they put them in categories like U.S. presidents, authors, actors and all this stuff. But all these ones that are in orange here are all United States presidents. And I had never thought about it either, about if you're related to somebody famous, the possibility or the idea that you could be related to them more than one time. So that's another kind of the wave that caught me after that. I was like, wait, what's going on here? Because, I'm related to Abraham Lincoln 22 times. I'm related to George Washington 15 times. I'm related to Oliver Cromwell one time, but I'm a direct descendant of Oliver Cromwell. There's a handful of these people.
I'm gonna back you up here a minute because I want to understand this. I'm looking at the list, which is reporting 64 relatives. Your relatives report under Gerald Rudolph Ford, Gerald R. Ford, who would have been, what president was he? Anyway, he was president back in the 70s. He replaced Mr. Nixon, who resigned. So Gerald Ford is a sixth cousin 2 times removed, 10th cousin 1 time removed, 10th cousin 1 time removed, 11th cousin 1 time removed. These continue to go down, and then the final column is a list of common ancestors that lists all these names. So we're not dealing with something that is linear. This is a tree. These are people who have a family tree that's branching off in different directions and creating more trees and sub-trees and then merging back into it at some point. So it's fair to say that these are intimate relatives on some level.
Yes, and Lori brought up something the other day. She's like, are you aware how tiny our gene pool is? And I got to thinking about it,
Yeah.
like, wow,
That's true.
yeah.
That's true. And that's actually the point of this. Not only is the gene pool small, but it's constantly pulled back in at some level and in
Yes.
ways people don't understand.
That's right. Because another thing that we may have been lied to is that everyone knows incest equals bad. Incest equals bad. And then we know about we have these, see people that have been retarded and they're all inbreeding. And so there's jokes about it, in the Appalachian Mountains.
Is it really?
Oh, certainly hope we haven't been lied to, I hope, right?
Oh, no, that would never happen.
Yeah. And I can assure your audience, Randy, that there's not a retarded bone in my body. Let me just put it like that. And so my handler that I was speaking about earlier, my dog had a puppy litter with her dog, and her dog is a border collie. My dog's a Australian Shepherd, and they made a great litter of beautiful dogs. Well, and she was a little bit careless at one point, and the brother and the sister mated. And they had a litter, and let me tell you, these dogs were fantastic. People were paying lots of money for them. And she asked the vet, and the vet said, "Oh, no, that's okay and everything." He said, "Where you run into problems is where the father breeds with the daughter, but brother and sister is usually okay." And then now that is reminiscent of stories like Osiris and Isis, or Moses and Sarah. All these brother sister type things that we hear about in the Bible and stuff. So,
well, if you took the creation story in Genesis literally, somebody was banging somebody's sibling there. And I don't know where the girls came from because there were only 2 sons originally, right? But then it says, then it says in other places that when Cain was expelled from the garden, he was given a mark so that he would be protected from the other people. So you're kind of like, well, wait a minute. Okay, the story just got bigger here. A bunch of people just emerged out of the background scenery.
It just jumped. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So on one level or another, we're all related. And that's...
we are all the human race. Yeah.
Even
and there's
cross-racially, there's a
absolutely
huge amount of the human gene pool that is common.
Yes.
Now, when I say common, the elites have a different twist on that because they think they're uncommon. And so they had breeding programs.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because we know that they have breeding programs. We've been hearing this, but I came to the inescapable conclusion after looking at all the facts objectively that I personally am a product of a scientifically controlled breeding program that's been going on for at least 500 years, if not much longer.
Yeah, this got formalized in the early 20th century under the euphemism of eugenics, which was basically some of the elites in England who began to study and begin to understand how to purify the bloodlines. This goes over into the Fourth Reich and Hitler as well, of the Uberman.
The Anunnaki, or the teen groups where they were working out and all, for parties or whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's sort of a methodology to all of this that we don't completely understand.
There really is.
Mathematically, the thing is mind-blowing. And it's more mind-blowing when you stop to consider the world of celebrity. Now, you have 2 names on here that jumped out at me. Janice Joplin and Johnny Cash. Not exactly 2 people you would put in the same phrase together, but I can tell you that within Hollywood, it is a very, very small breeding pool. And when you begin to look at how they connect, and they connect transcontinentally as well, we find a very definitive genetic makeup of actors, of Hollywood actors. By the way, this also goes into childhood sex reversals and transgenderism as well, in terms of who's what and what's who in the gender pool, because they're very specific about that as well. That's another subject for another time too, but
Absolutely. Absolutely, you are correct. And I was wondering how they put the twist on that story, on this story that we're talking about. And so I looked up some stuff about Hollywood's, Hollywood stars that were related that you might not know about, or they might be related to a politician or something. And here's how they handle that. They have their own narratives, they got all their own stories and stuff like that. And one thing they talk about a lot is what they call nepotism. It's so bad. Nepotism is where you're an actor, you got a good role, your daddy was an actor or something like that. So they try to keep the focus on the real, base stuff. And they do reveal these relationships, but never more than one. They'll say that so-and-so is related to so-and-so and make a big deal about it, but they won't mention the other 1,000 people they're related to, and that they're related to these people in multiple ways. They don't touch any of that. That's not allowed to talk about.
Right. So in Hollywood, you've had bloodline families for a century. Most people know the name Barrymore, the Barrymore family, and you have Drew Barrymore, who's, the contemporary now. But that family goes the whole way back to the 1800s in terms of bloodline families that were actors specifically, and very specific genetics, very specific skills that go into that. And when I uncover a name, I research it. And recently one of them came up, and it was this young reporter on MSNBC whose last name was Farrow. And I looked at him and I went, okay, I know who you are. And I went and looked, and it's the son of Mia Farrow and Woody Allen. And he's caught up in this whole lawsuit dispute thing with Woody over Woody's proclivities towards sleeping with his own children, even if they're adopted children, and marrying them, by the way, too. So there's one instance where that was an easy one. But when I see famous people now and I don't know much about them, I go back and I start to research the names. And after a while, you come to find out that, yeah, there's lineages on both sides. They intermarry. It's a colony. It's a tribe. And this is a very controlled operation that perpetuates a very specific type in order to draw off of that, we'll say, labor pool.
Yes, and that is a very interesting name that you mentioned, Pharaoh. I mean, it might be spelled Farrow, but I mean, there's another way to spell it, and that's Pharoh, or however you AO, Pharaoh, like Pharaoh.
Well, Mia Farrow herself was bloodline, both sides. Her mother was a very famous actor, Maureen. Now it escapes me. Maureen Sullivan, and her father was a very well-known director, producer. And you go back through their bloodlines and you find, and I'm doing this to kind of give you an example of how this is structured and reasons why it's structured this way. I know you know this. I'm just kind of pulling this out
Absolutely
for the listeners. Politicians, you think you live in a world where you say, well, anybody can grow up to be president of the United States. No.
I don't know.
No. How many presidents did you locate in your bloodline?
Only 41.
Gosh, that's a shame.
Yeah, I don't know if I even qualify to be on the show tonight. So. And another name is Ferris. I knew a guy named Ferris. That's obviously like a pharaonic name too,
So explain the pharaonic thing. There's a couple of things I want you to break out a little bit more. The pharaonic thing, because that's really, that's key, because I think we all understand, at least on a wide scale view, the concept of the pharaohs and what was going on there with Egypt and how that has trickled down through history as well.
Well, let me mention this, and this is what Tim Refat says that I've seen him say on one of his videos, and that is that these obelisks are attached to or were attached to a worldwide grid system. But not only that, the statues of the ancient pharaohs, and back in those days, they would have sculptors that would sculpt these beautiful beings of these pharaohs, and the people would more or less like worship them, but their power going through these things actually changed the pharaohs into these, made them even more vibrant and more, it had an effect on them, you know. And that's very weird. And so he ties it in with this modern phenomenon of pop music and these pop princesses, and he claims, and rightly so, no one has really been able to refute it, that these modern pop princesses are some type of very powerful witches, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, almost like succubus, almost that level. In other words, pulling energy, which then transforms itself into this. And it's, if you notice in the last 20 years, it's heightened. I'm no prude, but the level of sexuality that's now on display in pop music is off the scale.
It is. I mean, they're not wearing any clothes, and they're talking about, and then now all the songs on YouTube and stuff, they can say the F word. They can talk about all kinds of, perverted sex and stuff. And yeah, the sexualization of the human race has been a big part of this. And one thing that I've seen, of course, they have all these dating apps where it so much easier to meet people now, and these maybe have these sexual expectations, but the phenomenon of called dick pics. And this is idea where a male man will send unsolicited pictures. Everyone knows what a dick pic is. And the women don't want them, but the men send them anyway. And so that's very weird. That needs to be studied. And they made that illegal in Texas now. Last year, you can go to jail for sending a lady an unsolicited picture of your privates if she complains.
Yeah, that is all designed to take us into a place where we're just basically animalistic. And I mean,
Absolutely.
the line itself is thin, but the proliferation of porn on the internet certainly has had no small effect on this. I mean, it's...
Yeah, but there's the opposite side of the coin. I mean, there's a fact where if you just say the wrong thing to somebody, just have practically go to jail. But yet these people over here who are having sex with animals, oh, that's okay. I mean, it's just weird. Just the whole. It's just like all open. It's the fear and the permissiveness at the same time.
Yeah, it's off the scale. So where we want to go with this from here?
Well, okay. So let me kind of get back with the story with Lori. And so we started making these discoveries, and like bizarre stuff. Like I'm related to Merle Haggard, related to Gus Grissom like 76 times. Unreal stuff. And one of the things that really hit me the most is we found out that my mother was related to my father over 200 different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So it just really boggles the imagination. But since I had started revealing some of these things on some videos, just here and there a little bit, I've made some startling discoveries that has never been revealed yet, because it was only found out last week. And this was something that was really pretty heavy. And so I wanted to check it. I was doubting it. I was like, knowing that, I couldn't come forward to say this if there's possible we were wrong. And what confused the issue is that Lori and I are so related. And that's the next story I'm going to tell you, is about Lori and my handler and me.
Mm-hmm.
That is weird. Okay. But before I tell you that, I'm going to tell you what I've recently found out, and I got all the documentation I can show you. Is I'm a direct descendant of William the Conqueror, and I'm also a direct Charlemagne. And that's
Charlemagne, yeah.
Charlemagne. And Charlemagne is my 38th great grandfather. He's not like cousins like, Elvis Presley and, Johnny Depp and all this other stuff. I mean, I'm a direct descendant of his. And then also William the Conqueror, who of course is a direct of Charlemagne. And then also Margaret Tudor. Margaret Tudor is my 14th great grandmother. William the Conqueror is my 30th great grandfather, and Charlemagne is my 38th great grandfather. And of course, I don't know where Oliver Cromwell is in there, but I'm a direct descendant of Oliver Cromwell. And I think that's about it. Oh no, James V. So those are all the people right there that I know of that I'm a direct. These people were no joke. You know what I mean? These were people who are in world history, that we know about. You know.
So I was just looking here. I wanted to send this document up to the screen. Give me a second here.
Am I supposed to be seeing it right now?
You will in a minute.
Okay, you got it.
Okay, so there we go. That's a relatives report. That's a printout that you got. And I don't know if you can see that in detail or not, what that
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. You can read it very easily.
That one there is Johnny Cash. If you can see from that. There's just pages and pages of these printouts. I'll send a few more images over as we go along here.
You bet. And I see Buchanan on there. I've noticed that's one of those names, you know, and Campbell. Oh, I tell you what, Campbell, that name comes up a lot. Some of these names come up over and over, you know.
Yeah. So that's just to give you an idea of the kind of report that you get when you begin searching genealogicals and how detailed they actually are. It's pretty amazing.
Oh,
stuff.
Yeah. It's nobody's making this stuff up. It's all that, and here on these genealogical records and sites, find someone who is dead, because when somebody dies, they have a death certificate, and that's real big in genealogy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because when you haven't died yet, you know, you've got a birth certificate, you've got a marriage certificate, but you don't have that other certificate.
Yeah, the death certificate's a big deal. Let's see here.
Yeah, like our social security number, and you know, even in the lower levels of the truther movement and stuff like that, people are decrying the fact that, oh, you know, you're owned in a corporation and stuff like that. Well, yeah, I mean, they've got it all on paper like that for sure. You know, they're going to have their, you know, reasons.
Well, that goes into some interesting aspects as well with this. Human
really
beings
does.
as products, somewhat, let's just say, owned by corporations. Because we know the corporations go back traceably as far as Mesopotamia. The corporations have always existed, and that corporations trademark their properties. Now, this one is Gus Grissom. This one I just pulled up randomly. And this again goes from 7th to, let's see, 14 generations, with some very interesting names in there as well. And again, these are, when you begin to go through the names, you know, if you analyze these long enough, you'll begin to see patterns. I don't know if you've done this, if you've cross-tabbed this. If you throw this into a spreadsheet or a database, you can cross-tabulate the data. The Latter-day Saints actually do this stuff, where they can take genealogies and cross-tabulate them and show you connections across numerous references based on the generational removal, which and the various family trees, the common ancestors. Very interesting.
Oh yeah, you know, the spellcraft, you know. I've got this one document I'm going to show you right here, and this is just a kind of they've got so many ways of displaying the information. Yeah, but that didn't show what I want. I wanted to show this. Is that working now? It's just showing that one document.
That's perfect. You're good.
The only reason I wanted to put that up there's no notable people in there. These are just my immediate, you know, family and stuff, but just to show the viewers kind of how one of the ways that they display it, because they can display it in these trees. If you are related to some notable person or just anyone that you know that you wanted to try to find out, they go up to the common ancestor. So it's not going to show your whole tree. It just goes up kind of that branch, and then it goes up their branch. and displays it like that. It displays them side by side. I could probably show you a picture of that, because those are the ones that I looked at the most when I first started doing this. That you see this one that I just now put up there, that is ancestry.com. I started getting on some of these other sites, and there's really a lot of different ways that they can display this stuff. Oh, now this is the one that I made for you prior to this show, and this is kind of, are you seeing that on the screen?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay, this is a deal that put together for me, and it shows going up, but this is basically is just from me down there at the bottom, Durward King Mahon, up to Margaret, my 14th great grandmother, and you kind of just read it from the bottom up, and that tells you every person there. And the person under Margaret Tudor is James V, King of Scots. I already knew that I was related to him. And then, Robert Pitcairn Stewart, Lady Irene Stewart. Okay, now this is weird. I've got my cousins are the Stewarts. I have cousins that are Stewarts. And the Stewarts, we know that's okay. And then the Robert Great McFarland, who does that? That reminds me of Seth MacFarlane. Yeah. Then under him is McFarland M. Simmerlink. Then under that is Robert Merrill McFarland. And then under that is Robert McFarland. Okay, no, that's a repeat of that. So you got the McFarlands, and you got the Wilkins, the Kirkpatricks, Mahons.
These names just continue to stream through the cultures.
They do. My brother's name is Kirk. So, my brother's name is Kirk, and so obviously they got that from Kirkpatrick.
Yeah.
My name is King. Well, you go back further, it was a last name, it was a family last name, and then they named exactly. my favorite great uncle gave it his first name, and then they liked him, so they gave me the name. So, and now here's another interesting thing that I found out about my name. That's very kind of weird. The national hero of Ireland is Brian Boru, Brian Boru, however you say it. Everyone in Ireland knows this. He is the main guy of Ireland, and Brian Boru has a title. And his title is King Mahon. And I guarantee you, my parents did not know that. I guarantee you they didn't know that. And though that's weird for me to have a name, actually a title, that's weird. It really is. But there's two other men in the United States named King Mahon. They don't have the same middle name that I do. But I'm not the only King Mahon. As far as I found, there's three of us. So just combinations of names, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, getting back to this story of, and I've sent you this picture before, and you know that we can't publish it, but my handler is good friends with Julia Roberts, and the picture that I showed you, New Year's Eve party a few years ago, which was right. A small casual affair and everything, and there's some different weird things about that picture. But I've had several of my psychics tell me there is something going on there. And so we, some people have had the idea that Julia, some of these high level actors and stuff, or maybe have covens or something. I don't know what's, but my handler's father was a trial lawyer in Lubbock, Texas. Let me see. I'm going to grab something over here. Let's see. Hey, do you see that? You see that statue candle holder has a monkey on it? It's a little monkey. I'd come over, but I don't want to take this headphones off.
Maybe a bed. It's not here in this one.
It's like a big monkey. Not monkey. It's actually. Oh wait.
We do not want to show you. It's okay. Monkey.
Let me take that. And I meant
It's okay. We're just guys hanging out.
I know.
It's all good. It's all
good.
That was actually quite funny.
I meant chimpanzee. So her father was a kind of a famous trial lawyer in Texas. And, you know, every attorney is going to try to pretend like they're a trial lawyer, and they're not. Almost none of them are really trial
No, it's
lawyers.
actually
You
an
know,
art
yeah,
form.
they're just all, they just sell
Yeah.
you out and make deals and stuff. But anyway, this guy was an actual trial lawyer. He was a very charismatic man.
Can we screen share that screen there when we can bring you back in center screen?
Okay, let's do that.
Just
I see the button.
yeah, stop sharing.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. Okay.
There
So
you go.
all right.
There you go.
So anyway, he was a trial lawyer, and it was legendary because he had a plaster bust chimpanzee, life size, you know, like the size of your and me, bust of a chimpanzee. He would take this bust into trials with him and set it up there on the banister, serious multi-million-dollar trials and stuff like this, and talk to it during the court proceedings. I had never heard of anything like that. It's so outrageous. That's so out there. It's just even hard to believe. But she told me that it's even too strange to make up. So I know that it is true. But how the judge would even allow that, you know, almost to make a mockery of the court. But one thing that tells us is this is a man who was a master hypnotist. Probably naturally master hypnotist, and then also trained. I mean, how else can you explain it? You know, you go in there and talk to a monkey during the trial and you win the trial. You know, it's just, that's strange.
Until you've had an encounter with somebody who has the ability to do that, to walk into a scene and control it using mesmerism, hypnotism.
Absolutely.
Glamour magic is another term for it. And,
absolutely.
When you witness that, and most people walk away, they don't think about it. The more aware walk away from it and they go, what the hell did I just see?
And Madame Blavatsky, one of her books, talks about this exact same kind of people, saying that there's a type of person that's like that, who people will just come up to and spontaneously confess. You know,
that would be me. No, that's actually one of my, I've had people do it repeatedly.
To get stuff off their chest, or what? Why?
I've had people walk up to me and start bawling. I had a female attorney who worked in my office building. This was years ago. She worked for a law firm that mostly did DUIs and stuff like that. Woman walked out to me one day. I was standing outside, and she looked at me and lit up a cigarette and walked over, broke down crying and said, I don't know what I'm going to do about this shitstorm of my life, and started telling me all this crap she was going through as an attorney working for this bastard that she worked for. This was the head of the law firm.
Wow. And
people spontaneously tell me a lot of things. And if I allowed it, I could be probably on the phone most of the day. And because I call myself a confessor. I'm revealing a little bit here. Because there is with that the proviso that you never break confidence. So yeah, I mean, that's a lot of people have these like weird callings. That happens to be mine. When you said that, I was like, okay, let's just bring this up. The hypnotists, the people who can do the glamour magic, they're amazing to watch. That's not a gift I have. But watching them, these are people that can have a police officer apologize to them at the side of the road for having pulled them over, much less give them a ticket. Yeah, these are the people that gaslight on a grand scale every day.
Right. Maybe every day, or maybe only in certain times.
In certain times.
Let me tell you, on stage, and especially with the music, that's why I was played in rock bands for years, and it was I don't know what it is, but I'm not, in a lot of ways, I'm not really kind of a likable person, whatever, for maybe certain reasons. But when I get on stage and when I get a microphone, I mean, it's just like,
See, good
Wow.
performers, that's actually part of that. It's not something you can learn. It's part of the gifting. And it's actually part of the genetics as well, the coding. Some people have it. And ideally, if you follow eugenics principles, these are all very well definable and very almost like programming. You plug modules in this case, genetic modules, traits modules. You go back to Gregor Mendel, and you go into more advanced probabilistic mathematics, and you can begin to predict traits of people, right down to entire families that carry groups of traits that are then delineated out across the family tree.
You can do that with personology too.
Exactly.
And I've recently been getting into personology. It's mind-blowing. But let me make one point about what you were just saying about this kind of glamoring ability or whatever. I, at one point, my life dedicated to rock and roll, I came up with the idea that the only past history that was like a rock show was great armies would go ready to go into battle, and the leaders would come out and get the troops all charged up and get everybody ready for blood. You know what I mean? To me, that's like a rock concert. They're getting out there in front of the people, and then the people are just saying, "All right, let's do it."
Opera. Rock and roll is opera. It is Die Valkyrie, Ride of the Valkyries. That's music that was designed basically for war. And
yeah.
Those are ancient arts. The art of war and the art of music are very much together. Heavy metal is very much like that.
There's nothing not brilliant about it. I mean, some of the best musicians in the world are
absolutely some of the best music. Yes.
Yeah.
It's the most repressed too.
Oh yeah.
The heavy metal bands are the most repressed.
And to be in a heavy metal band or something like that, you've got to have mastery of your instrument.
Yeah.
Like way more than like country music or anything like that. And then you also have a high proliferation of virtuosos.
Well, we could talk about this for hours. Absolutely. I mean, some of my heroes, like Ronnie James Dio, the guys.
I am the biggest worshiper of Dio. Yeah. And I will tell you, Randy, that this is just telling you this objectively. I am, because it's really my first estate. I'm a writer, but I'm a musical genius. Okay, and even in the last couple of years, I've written songs that are like hits.
Yeah,
they're not on the radio or anything, but it's like somehow it's like some formula or something. And now today's music is more about the production even than the actual, the composition, and the sounds, that the tastiness of the sounds is,
Well, and this goes into the whole thing about music and how it's put together. And again, that's why I said about opera. Opera embraced the entire spectrum of vision, stagecraft, big music, theater. It put it all together. And the brilliance of a great rock show is it's all of that. If you've ever seen brilliant performers and you've watched the spectacle that is, I don't deny the genius even of the Luciferian artists. I can enjoy watching their craft and at the same time understanding what it is they're communicating with their sigils, their symbols, their movements, their hand signals.
Their gestures, yeah.
Exactly. And most of that's unconscious too. They don't really know what they're doing.
You are so right. Let me tell you, the one psychic that I had, who she's unfortunately kind of went off but the thing is, she was using these programs. They were using her as a child, and she was also, her father was involved in the aeronautics industry and everything like that. And they've really done her hard her whole life. But she's kind of in a different reality. But her husband, whatever, didn't like. Anyway, supposedly she came up with the idea that I had some type of protection or something, because I was unknowingly, I was just shooting out all these Masonic gestures just constantly, without even realizing it.
That is programming. And you have to understand that even though you may not have actively been in a mind control program, a lot of that is programmatically coming through you.
Yes.
This has come through me over time too.
Well, you know, Randy, there may be a lot of your viewers don't know that one of the strange things about me, there is some type of programming aspect, whether it's something that's divine or something that may come from the Illuminati or whatever. But I received a 4-stage plan for my life when I was about 6 years old. And I remember where it happened. It was at the private school that I was going to, and it was at an Episcopal sanctuary. And I was alone, and I didn't hear the voice of God. Nobody told me anything. But when I came out of there, I had a 4-stage plan for my life that was my reality. And today it is my reality. And it was very troubling because it started with me and as an adult. And the stage 1 was prison. So I was 6 years old and I knew I would be going to prison, and I was terrified, and I did not tell my mother, and I didn't tell anyone. And so there's these other stages that I'm kind of in the middle of. And then the final stage of this plan is that I am to be a world leader. And I don't know exactly what that means, but that is my reality. It's never crossed my mind that I won't be.
The occult, the elites, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, they're not really creators. They are a priesthood. And the best they can do, and this is where it becomes very blurry, with giftings especially. And everybody's gifted on one level or another. I don't care who you are, from the greatest to the most humble among us. We all have a gift. We all have gifts. So the closest they get to this is through their secret societies, through the transmission of knowledge down through the bloodlines. They're sort of able to ride the lightning, so to speak.
Absolutely.
But really, the flash that you had of who you are and what you could become, that was you. That was the spark inside of you, that knowing.
They would like me to think it was them, or they would like
exactly.
to take that and just knock it 1 or 2 degrees off course or whatever, maybe. Yeah.
See, the folly of what these people have done. I've been saying this for years, and I say it because I know it pisses them off. Hello out there. Your programming doesn't work. It breaks down. And when it breaks down, it's a bitch. It's a bitch for the person whose programming breaks down, and it's a bitch for the people that have to deal with it. That's why they have handlers. And that's why handlers get replaced and retreaded and moved around. And it's tiresome work because they don't know what the hell they're doing either. They're like, why am I in this place and with this person? This makes no sense.
It's like, what I do meditation retreats for a living. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Sure, yes.
Eyes wide shut,
Yeah, exactly.
And so John Lamb Lash has come up with the idea or the concept that, just like what you said, these people are not original, but they are experts of facsimile.
Right.
They're copies.
This is the archonic overlay. Yeah.
They can't create, but they can copy like a mofo,
Yeah.
Or,
so we blew past the hour mark, and I wanted to see if there's anything else you want to put out in this segment. Anything else? Well,
there's plenty we haven't covered, but I can put that in the next segment. I can continue this. Okay.
All right, let's do that. Let's flip it over. You folks on the private side, you got to hear an hour of us discussing some pretty deep stuff. If you want more, you can visit me and join up over at patreon.com/Randy Moggins. And look, Cthulhu, other words known as Durward King Mahon, Ayin Thropos. And do you have a web address or anything you want to drop?
Just my YouTube channel,
Okay.
which is You Don't Know.
Links down below. You don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. We'll see you on the other side. Truth is out there. Keep finding it. See you on the next one.
Thank you, Randy.
cow with a frown. You've gone chicken little, leaks are on the middle, holes are on the middle, Satan has got
You are listening to Off Planet Radio at offplanetradio.com.
angels in the city looking to know you. Hot dog through the city, girls are looking pretty, cards are sayings and they're looking to jank you. Lips are taut and sturdy, boots and boots are curvy, long lashes getting dirty, ones to brush you. I so pop and sturdy, you looking kind of pretty, touch this dress and my bums will rush you. I hotty toddy, you are naughty naughty losers.